Welcome to the final days. Today is September 20th, 2019. Today we will be viewing striped and heavily cratered celestial objects rolling across the sky and several other sky and space anomalies not mentioned in mainstream news. The purpose of this channel is to show the viewers that we are living in the very last days according to the Holy Bible, and to explain why this is very good news and cause for celebration. Explain later in this video. The unedited images in this video were obtained this month from the Federal Aviation Weather Cameras in Alaska. Each image is 10 minutes apart from the next, forming a time-lapse video when strung together, such as the one playing now from the south-facing weather camera in Sitka, Alaska. Many of you have seen this celestial object, which is orbiting Earth, hundreds of times from many different cameras in Alaska and Canada. The reason we are starting out with this footage is to remind viewers of some fundamental rules of lens flares. 1. A lens flare of the sun doesn't rotate. A lens flare of the sun is a small reflection of the sun, which rotates only once every 27 Earth days. 2. Lens flares of the sun do not have craters. 3. Sun lens flares can never go behind clouds or other objects in a photo or video. 4. Lens flares of the sun can never react to sunlight in a video. For example, a lens flare cannot become partially illuminated by the object causing the lens flare. Please remember these elementary facts as we go through these FAA videos. The west-facing camera in Peterson Hill, Alaska, shows a reflection of NASA's light-emitting equipment, which casts a reflection upon water surfaces, proving that it's an actual piece of equipment and not a lighting or camera issue. NASA's equipment is much closer to the Earth than the Sun. This is why the sun often appears to cast two different reflections in the water, such as seen on the east-facing camera at Taku Inlet, Alaska. This equipment is capable of producing a circular glare, thousands of miles in diameter. However, whenever it passes behind a narrow object, such as this thin flagpole, it completely disappears. Our real sun could never disappear behind a thin flagpole. To find out where the real sun went, please watch our March 23rd video. Around 11 o'clock p.m. local time, the south-facing camera in Gamble, Alaska, captured a large, highly textured celestial orb for just one frame. I checked the next night, but it wasn't there. Jesus is describing the last days in the Bible's book of Luke, chapter 21, verse 25, when he clearly tells us that we will see these signs in the sky when the end is near. Another south-facing camera captured this same celestial object in the nighttime sky the same night. This one was taken by the south-facing camera in Wasilla, Alaska. Some of you have seen this celestial object in older footage captured by the southeast-facing camera in Yukon River Bridge. In just a minute, we are going to see a size and time comparison. We did this last month, so that we can know how much closer this object is than in previous weeks. Those of you who've been watching this channel know that we've been watching this large, fast-rotating celestial object at Yukon River Bridge for many weeks. Remember the lens flare rules that we covered earlier. A sun lens flare cannot rotate, does not have craters, cannot go behind clouds, and cannot react to the light source by becoming partially illuminated or shaded. Please remember to click on the thumbs up below so that this video becomes more available to those in need of this information. I don't have comments turned on, which lowers the search ratings on these videos, so your thumbs up helps to counteract that. For those of you who are new, I had to disable comments. Last year, when I allowed comments under the channel name Universal News Media, call centers were actually hired to leave thousands of profane, negative comments in order to discredit the channel, thanks to your tax dollars. I successfully blocked them all, but spent endless hours doing so. I was warned to stop, but I didn't. I was banned from the FAA weather cameras, they thought. My phone was tapped. Another woman doing the same thing received death threats to her family, so she stopped. I don't have a family, so they can't use that threat. And finally, I was paid a very hostile visit. I quit the channel in June 2018. That winter, a man stood up front during a special evening church service that I was attending, and he said, "God has a message for someone here. He's got your back. Whoever this message is for, you know who you are. God's got your back. He's got your sides, your front, your back, and he says to go ahead. God is giving you the green light. God's got your back." Well, I knew that message was for me. So I went ahead and I created a new channel, and my boss, the King of Kings, told me to call it The Final Days. He also told me to make these videos more scriptural and evangelical. I have done as instructed. So now you have some background information on how this channel came about. Let's take a look at how much bigger this object is after 10 weeks. Using the same exact weather camera at approximately the same time of day, 10 weeks apart. Using screen pixels, the images taken on September 8th are about 14% larger after 10 weeks. Actually 13.5, but I rounded it up to the nearest percentage. This is exactly the same percentage of increase as when we measured this same object last month, 1.4% per week. The fact that this object appears in the same location on the same camera each day indicates that either it is directly headed toward us or we are headed toward it as we travel around the sun. I'm not sure which. I can tell you that this inbound planetary system will make its closest pass to Earth during the biblically foretold time of the Great Tribulation, described in the Bible's book of Revelation. The south-facing camera in Arctic Village, Alaska, shows the craft that we've seen hundreds and hundreds of times in these videos. The craft tows some very, very large equipment that acts somewhat like an umbrella so that NASA's manufactured light doesn't illuminate these celestial objects, causing them to be more visible. In some of these images, we can see both the craft and the top edge of the equipment that the craft is towing. Notice that the craft and the equipment move in the same direction at exactly the same time in synchronization, maintaining the same distance apart in each frame. The path of the craft is marked with red arrows. And just so you know, these aren't lens flares. These objects are behind clouds in some of the frames. Can you see the celestial orb in this video from the south-facing camera in Thompson Pass? I'll play the footage exactly as it came off the camera, then we'll review it with some contrast added. The vertical purple beams are coming directly from the center of NASA's manufactured light. This is something that just started about 2 years ago. A red arrow marks the craft that is towing the equipment to help conceal the celestial object in these images. It goes behind the clouds for a few frames, but then it reappears around 2:00 p.m. local time. Untold trillions have been spent on the technology to hide this incoming system. The reason is because the enemies of Christ do not want you to know how close to the end we are. The enemies of Christ do not want you to give your life to Jesus before your time runs out. Some of you may have seen this same object back in March or April from the northwest-facing camera in Tok, Alaska. This object appears to have stripes and does appear to be rotating. The images with contrast show a red orb coming into view for just a few frames. However, the red orb is very faded in the atmospheric chemicals and difficult to see even with contrast added. Something very interesting showed up on the south-facing camera in Skagway, Alaska. Whatever it is, it has a definite shape and is much more visible when NASA's circular glare comes closer to light it up. As the light source travels across the sky from left to right on this camera, it does cast shadows on the side of this object that is away from the light source. Thus, this object is reacting to the light source, and so we know it can't be a lens flare. However, this object doesn't appear to be moving, at least not very fast, so either it's very, very distant or it is stationary. I'm not sure which. The southwest-facing camera in Nikiski, Alaska, captured a very interesting celestial orb that appears to be striped and also moving as we go through this video footage. The southeast-facing camera in Cape Spencer, Alaska, shows a reflection in the water not centered under the light source, causing the reflection. Additionally, whenever the, quote, sun appears enormous in these videos, it is always done to engulf a celestial object in glare in order to conceal it. We saw an extreme case of this in March 2018 when the sun rapidly increased to many times its previous size in order to engulf two nearby celestial objects in glare in an attempt to hide them from view. Technology is in place to render celestial objects very out of focus to prevent viewing by the public. As the light source descends for the night in this video, at least two blurry celestial objects can be seen just before NASA's light source completely engulfs them in glare, causing an extremely distorted appearing sun. The southeast-facing camera in Chilkat, Alaska, shows a celestial object very faded in the atmospheric chemicals, nearly impossible to see. We'll go through the footage as it came off the camera, and then we will see it again with some contrast added. I've mentioned before that if I only use the contrast where needed, it works much better to bring out the details of these celestial objects. In some of these images, the celestial object is behind the clouds, thus we know it can't be a lens flare. Dr. Albers, an astrophysicist with a YouTube channel, says that these objects are stellar cores, which are burned out stars, and that there are many, many of them out there. Dr. Albers says that these stellar cores siphon energy from our sun as they pass by it. The southeast-facing camera in Cape Fanshawe, Alaska, shows the reflection of the sun on the water's surface. Look again. This isn't the sun. The sun isn't even up yet, and this camera isn't even facing the sun. The sunrise is not within this camera's viewing capability. The sun will be rising in the east to the left 45 minutes from now. However, something casting a very bright yellow reflection upon the water is behind the heavy cloud cover above the reflection. Let's move through this footage. Exactly 3 hours later, here comes the sun. It's well up in the sky because it rose not within this camera's viewing capability, but to the east. This is just another sign that we are living in the very last days. The imminent approach of this planetary system is actually good news and cause for celebration, because Jesus has promised to remove his faithful followers from earth before God's wrath is unleashed upon the earth. This is commonly called the rapture, which will take place quickly and quietly. The New King James Version of Luke chapter 21 verse 36 reads, "Watch therefore and pray always, that you may be counted worthy to escape all these things that will come to pass." Jesus is referring to God's wrath. He is saying that those who are counted worthy will escape all of God's wrath, which will occur during the Great Tribulation. The Bible repeatedly promises that faithful followers of Jesus are not appointed to God's wrath. To be counted worthy, we must be living in holiness. A link in the description box below discusses what holiness is and how to achieve it. The reason that your eternal soul has been sent into this fallen world is so that you can choose to love Christ out of your own free will and live according to that love. This is the only reason we are here in these temporary flesh bodies. These next few screens will tell you how to accept Christ into your life. Simply pause the screens if you need more time to read the text.